I will show you why one of the simplest Sudoku strategies may be almost impossible to spot. And I'll share one of my favorite techniques to make it easier for you. And with that, it's solving time. To get to the point where you need the simple strategy, start by looking for digit restrictions from 1 to 9 and mark any 3x3 grid where a candidate appears twice. So if we look at the ones, you'll notice with these two ones, there's only 2 places for a 1 in block 1, and we'll mark that. Also in block 8, because of this one and this one, there's only 2 places for a 1 right there. And that's all we can do with the ones for now. Greetings, friend. This puzzle from the 2025 Sudoku Grand Prix is a perfect example of how one of the simplest Sudoku strategies, in fact, it's one I cover in my beginner tutorial, can sometimes be almost impossible to spot. I'm going to share a technique that will save you countless hours being stuck on puzzles like this. And before we move on and look at the twos, I want to hear from you. Which Sudoku strategy comes easiest to you? Please, please, please share this in the comments and help me grow the internet's best Sudoku community. I love hearing from you and respond to every comment. So let's move on with the twos. You'll notice that this 2 cuts across row 5, so there's only 2 places for a 2 in block 5. And since they're in the same column, this is a pointing pair. And since the 2s have to be somewhere in block 5 and they're limited to column 5, a 2 can't be anywhere else in the column. You can't put a 2 here or here, or you'd have no place to put a 2 in block 5. So you can use this 2, and these pointing pair of 2s to solve for 2 in block 2. And then with these 2s and this 2, we can mark 2s in block 3. And then with this 2 cutting across, this 2 coming down, you may notice another pointing pair of 2s in block 4, which with this 2 will restrict the 2s to these 2 cells in block 7. Nothing else with the 2s. Let's move on to the 3s. If you just double click here in SudokuPad, it'll pop up all the cells where you have a 3, either a given or a marked cell. That's how I'm doing that. 3s are restricted to these 2 spots in block 1. And that's all you can do with the 3s. Let's move on to the 4s. You might see that with these 2 4s, 4 are restricted to these 2 spots in block 4, and then these 2 spots in block 8 because of these 2 4s. That's all you can do with the 4s. Move on to the 5s. With these 2 5s, you can solve for a 5 right there in block 2. But that's about it for now. So you are making some progress here. You want to keep it up. Keep trying to find these easy solves. Moving on to the 6s. And you'll see with these 2 6s, you can solve for a 6 in block 2. And with this 6, you can solve for a 6 in block 5. And then with this 6 cutting across and this 6 coming down, you have a pointing pair of 6s in block 4. And since you have a 6 right here in the same row as the 2, the 6s are going to end up in the same spot as the 2. And whenever you see the marks on top of each other like this, you have found a hidden pair. The 2 and 6 got to be somewhere in block 7. And since they're in the same 2 cells, that's the only 2 candidates that can go there. You can remove all other candidates when you find a hidden pair. And that's not the simple strategy I'm talking about. In fact, if you just do the marking like I'm showing you, you can find these hidden pairs rather easily, especially if they're in the same block. No, there's something else that's simple that we're working towards as we move along here. And after doing the 6s in block 7, you notice with this 6 and this 6, you have a pointing pair of 6s in block 6. Go with this 6, 6s in block 9. That's all you can do with the 6s for now. Let's move on to the 7s. And you may have noticed with these 2 7s and this 7, you can solve for a 7 in block 1. And once you displace a mark like that, you can solve the other cell immediately for that candidate. So we can solve that for a 3. But we're not done with the 7s. With these 2 7s, you can mark 7s here in block 3. Okay, after the 7s, let's look at the 8s. You have 2/8 right here. Only two places they can go in block 6 is right there. Nothing else you can do with the 8s right now. And then move on to the 9s. And what you might see is with this 9 and this 9, you have a pointing pair of 9s in block 6. You have 3 places for 9 here in block 3. I'm not going to mark that. For the efficient marking that I use, I want to be where I can spot some of these pairs pretty easily. And if you're able to solve one of those cells for something besides the candidate you marked, then you can solve the other cell right away for that candidate. So that's why I don't mark 3 in a block like that. And so now, solving tip, you want to go back through. And this is actually the point where you would look more closely. And this is the point where you're going to be looking for this simple strategy that's going to help you with this particular puzzle. One thing that we did that was pretty important is with this 3 and this 3, now that you have a 6 right here, these 3s become a pointing pair in block 5. And so 3s can't be here. They can't be here because of this 3. And it can't be here because of this 3. You can solve for 3 now in block 8. And now with these 3s and this 3, 3s are restricted to these two cells in block 7. And this is it. There's nothing else easy to spot. There's no other marks you really can make right now. And so you have a choice. What I'll say is you're going to be looking for either single candidate strategies or you're going to look for by value cells. This is a championship puzzle. There's usually not that many single candidate strategies. If you're astute, you may notice there actually is an X-wing of 1s here in rows 3 and row 7. And you can make some eliminations with this X-wing. However, it doesn't really do anything for you. I would focus more on the by value cells in this puzzle, which leads up to that simple strategy. We got to ask, like, where do we start? There's so many cells to mark. You don't want to mark all the cells because that's going to take a lot of time. So you want to be very efficient with the marking to find the restrictions as quickly as possible. So where you want to start is the heavy houses. And so a heavy house, as I call them, is a row, column, or block that has at least 5 cells filled out. If you look here in row 3, you got a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you just need a 1, 8, and a 9. And so it's a 1, 8, 9, naked triple. You can remove the 9 because of the 9 in column 8, and you can remove the 1 because of the 1 already in column 9. You might also see, where are some other heavy houses that really stand out to you? Probably here in columns 4 and 6, right? Because they have at least 6 digits filled out. If you look here in column 6, you have a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's just a 1, 8, and a 9, but they're all 1, 8, 9. Okay? And, you can fill out the 1, 8, 9 to finish block 2 just because it's right there. It's one additional cell. If you go in column 4, you're going to start getting some idea of where you need to be looking. Because with this, you have a 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and an 8. You need a 4, 7, and a 9. But because you have a 4 in this row, that's just a 7, 9. You have a 7 in row 7, that's a 4, 9. And you have a 9 in row 9. And now you created 3 BVCs, by value cells. And when you start seeing by value cells, you know you're on to something. Because this is one step away from a restriction that's going to solve a cell for you, right? If you can remove one of these candidates, you're going to be able to solve cells. And so the next place you want to look, I talked about looking at these heavy houses, but you got to look for something, and I'm going to call it, this is my technique that I am sharing with you. I'm going to call it my almost heavy house. So what's an almost heavy house? Let's look at column 2. You have 4 cells filled out, a 1, 6, 7, and an 8. And I said a heavy house, you need at least 5 cells filled out, right? However, if you look, you have a pointing pair of 2s right here. So these pointing pair of 2s could be a 5th filled out cell if you're just considering these 2 cells right here. And so that makes it worthwhile because you may notice there's some additional digits here in the row. So what does that put right here? 1, it can't be a 1, 2, 6, 7, 8 because of the column, and it can't be a 3 and a 5. This now has to be a 4 and a 9. And hopefully you're seeing that there's some significance to finding that particular buy value cell. You want to keep looking for these buy value cells until you can start matching them up with other cells. What's the impact now in the row, column, and block? Well, I got a 4-9 right here. And hey, what do we have right there? Another 4-9. And these are the cells I marked in the thumbnail. I bet you had a hard time finding this 4-9 naked pair unless you've already had all the candidates filled out. It makes that a little bit easier. So this is a 4-9 naked pair. Well, what does it do to the row? It actually makes it so now you have 5 cells accounted for. So you got 3, 5, 7, a 4, and a 9. So now all you have is a 1, 2, 6, and 8 to go in these other cells. And since you have a 4-9 right here, you can actually remove that 9 right there. And you go 1, 2, 6, 8. And there's a couple ways you could move from here and you could define these other digits. You may have noticed that with this 2 and this 6 as a pointing pair, kind of creates more restriction. It forces a 2 and a 6 to only be in these 2 cells. You may have noticed there's a 2-6 hidden pair. The other way is you can look right here and go, what can this cell be? It can be 1, 2, 6, or 8, right? Because we got the 4, 9, 3, 5, 7 already in the row. Well, I got 2 and a pointing pair of 6s. That can only be a 1 or an 8. And that creates just another naked pair, which would remove anything else from this cell. So whether you saw the hidden pair or the naked pair, you need to find that and see the impact. But we're not done. You're not done yet, right? Because now you want to look at the impact compared to other heavy houses. Hopefully you see we created another restriction here. Look here in column 8. You notice there's a 1-8 right here and a 1-8 right there. The only way to get to these two 1-8s is to find this other 4-9 or in this 2-6 to create the full restriction here. So now with these 2 cells filled out and you add it to the 2, the 3, and the 9, you have another heavy house. It's worth looking at. And since the 1 and 8 have to be in these 2 cells, this cell in the column can no longer contain an 8. So we're not done. There's still more to this puzzle. But hopefully you see naked pairs, I cover them in my beginner tutorial. They should be pretty easy to spot, but when you have them in outside blocks like this, they can be much trickier to spot. So you want to kind of look for those heavy houses and almost heavy houses to start your search. But we can remove the 8 from this cell because an 8 is going to be in one of these orange cells, and now you can solve this for an 8, which displaces that 9. And so now we're going to be able to create some more restrictions here. So you want to keep on going until you get stuck again. And so what you might see here is you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, and 9. You need 5, 6, and 7. Well, I got a 5 and 7 right here. This has to be a 6. And then this would be a 5, 7. And we can make that a naked pair. Also acts across this row as well, and a pointing pair. But if you keep looking across row 4, there's quite a bit of restriction going on here. Now, you got a 1, 3, 5, 6, and 8. You just need a 2, 4, and a 9. Well, you got the 9 right here, so this has to be your 9. You got the 2 right here, so that's got to be your 2, and that's going to be your 4, which displaces the 6 right there. Nice. And now, what you can see is 3 and a 5 right there. You can also see with this 9, this has to be a 7. So let's just clean up these marks. You want to clean up as much as possible before adding new marks. The cleaner the grid, the less clarity you have, the easier it is to continue making solves. That's a 4, and that's going to be your 9. And now you can solve this for a 4. Nice. All right. And so after making those marks, what you might notice right here is we had displaced that 2. So that's got to be your 2, and this is going to be your 3. And now we have a full house across the row. The only digit missing is a 5. So you can mark that, and then you're just missing a 3 here in block 4. Okay, which will displace this 3, and you can solve this cell now for a 3. So where do we go from here? You just solved all the 3s. You have a 1, 7, 8 going on here. Can't make that solve yet, so why don't we continue on and look down this way. You got a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you need a 1, 8, 9. Well, I got a 1 and 9 right there. That's got to be the 8. and this is going to be the 1, 9. So I'll put the 1, 9 naked pair. Lock pairs are very helpful because this 1, 9 is a naked pair in the column, but also in block 1. So it restricts what can go in block 1, and you'll want to look at that. What about these two cells? You just need a 5 and a 9 there. And you look right here, you see a 5 and a 9. So let's do this without marking. Because of this 9, that's got to be your 9, that's got to be your 5. And now we know that this has to be your 5 right there. Okay, and then you see right here, you just need a 4 and an 8. And so I'll look for the 4 and the 8. Yeah, look here though, you got a 189 naked triple. 189 in those 3 cells. So this can't be an 8 anymore, that's got to be your 4, which makes that an 8. And since the 8's got to be in one of these cells, you can remove the 8 from right there. Okay, and then it restricts what goes right here to a 5 and a 7. And so you might see is that we just create another 5, 7 naked pair right there. And so use that to your advantage. 5, 7 here. And you have now 3, 6, 8, 9. So you need a 1, 2, and a 4. Well, I got the 1 and the 4 right there. So that's got to be the 2. And I'll get out of color mode. Solve that for a 2. And now you can displace this 2. Solve this cell now for a 2. And then, continue moving on with the solves. With this 1, 8, 2, 3, 6, and 9, we have left 4, 5, and a 7. And you notice with the 5, 7, and 5 right there, and the 5 repeat, you can solve all 3 cells using my neat naked triple trick. That's got to be a 4. The only place the 5 goes right there, and this is going to be your 7. And now we can solve this for 7, disambiguate the 5, 7 right here. And this is kind of the solving you want to make as you move along. And now with this 9, you might notice the only place a 9 can go in this row is right here. So that's a 9, that's going to be a 1. You can put the 1 right there, 8 and a 9 right there. Nice. And this has to be your 1 now in this block. And you can remove the 1s from up here. Solve this now for the 8 and just kind of clean up as we go along. I love gobbling up all these cells. You displace the 1 right there, you can make another solve immediately. Got the 8 right here, that's got to be your 1. Full house in block 8, you can solve that immediately for a 7. With this 2, disambiguate the 6 and the 2 right there, which allows you to solve this for a 6 now. And then to tackle these 3 cells, start with the full house. The only thing missing is a 5, so you can solve that for a 5. Look at these 2 cells together. You just need a 4 and an 8. Pull down the one you see first. There's the 4. Now the last digit is an 8. Now see if you can spot the naked pairs in this next video. Thank you so much for watching.